Because sometimes it's very daunting to pick up a comic book and say, like, there's 85 years of history. I
Right,
feel,
yes.
if you're OCD,
I've
you feel like you should read all of it.
So I certainly don't have OCD, but I appreciate the sentiment behind the comment that Jim Lee made in that podcast. I understand it because it's that feeling that has allowed me to develop a little bit of a hatred for DC Comics. And to be honest with you, I don't want to hate DC Comics. I want to enjoy DC Comics, but my struggle is this, and I think it's the struggle of a lot of people, and I'll talk about that in a second. My struggle is that when I read a DC comic, I feel like I'm missing so much. I feel like because I haven't been a DC Comics reader for a couple of decades, that I don't truly understand the significance of what's actually happening. And that is not an enjoyable feeling. When you want to understand and you know you're missing something, that gives you a certain type of feeling. Now, this isn't to say that I haven't read some DC comics over the years that I've enjoyed. There are things like Hush that readily comes to mind. So Hush, The Dark Side War, which was incredible, Three Jokers was fantastic, and some of the titles that came out from Future State. And there's some others, right? But just off the top of my head, those are some that readily came to mind that I read and I enjoy. But holistically, I've struggled with being able to just pick up a DC comic and read it and enjoy it for what it is. Just because I always felt like there was so much baggage, if you will, that I didn't quite get, that I could not really get into the story. And so because of that, I've struggled. Now, what's really interesting is that over the years that I've had this channel, I've had people say to me, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to read comics. I don't know where to begin. I heard the comments, but I dismissed them because I didn't fully appreciate what they were trying to say. What they were trying to say is exactly what I just expressed, at least I think, is that when you read it, you know that you're missing something. And because you're missing something, you can't really enjoy it. Now, maybe people experience this with Marvel Comics, but I'm biased a little bit towards Marvel Comics because I've read Marvel Comics for decades, right? So I understand it and I get it, and I can connect those dots, right? I don't feel like I'm missing something when it comes to Marvel Comics versus DC, which I've been reading over the last couple of years, as I just alluded to. But I think that that's one of the great things about what DC is doing, specifically with their new Absolute Universe. That has changed a lot for me and potentially will change a lot for other people out there as well.
Yeah, the Absolute Universe to me represents a new opportunity to have our cake and eat it too, right? So when you're dealing with characters that have been around for 85, 90 years, like what can you possibly do that hasn't been done before?
Right.
And so being able to do stories at Elseworlds or Black Label or now the Absolute Universe allows us to play on known sort of what the audience already knows about these iconic characters, and then kind of put those expectations and their understanding of the characters and, really play around with it and deliver things that might surprise and delight them in ways. And so it allows us to keep our core Superman, Batman, DC Universe line going, but then also do something that's dramatically different, that gets a lot of new customers, new fans in the door. Because sometimes it's very daunting to pick up a comic book and say, like, there's 85 years of history.
Right,
I feel,
yes.
if you're OCD, you feel like you should read all of it.
I applaud DC for doing this. And yes, I know that they've had different reboots and initiatives over the years, but this is the first one that I've been a part of where I feel like I can pick up the comics and read them and enjoy all of them. And I'm specifically talking about things like Absolute Batman, which is incredible, Absolute Superman, and Absolute Wonder Woman. I have never read a Wonder Woman comic and enjoyed it before. Just being honest, until now. These three titles that have come out are fantastic, and I found myself seeking out these issues so that I can read them because I enjoy them. Some of the artwork I don't quite care for, but I'm enjoying the stories for what they are, and I think that that's a wonderful thing. My hope is that this is something that is going to resonate with people like me that want to like DC Comics, want to like these characters, in my mind, the thresholds and the barriers to entry have been lowered because of what they are doing. And my hope is that this is actually going to be successful. My other hope here is that this isn't something that's going to turn off those of you out there that are true DC fans, that have been reading DC, for decades in some cases, right? My hope is that the stories that are being told will appeal to you as well, while simultaneously appealing to new readers, maybe to younger readers, maybe to folks that only read Marvel, maybe to people that have seen some of the movies that want to, again, check out the source material. So I applaud DC for what they're doing, and my fingers are crossed that this is successful. So far, I think we've seen 3 ongoing titles. There are 3 more that are going to be coming in March, and I'm excited. I am excited about these. I'm specifically talking about Absolute Flash, Absolute Green Lantern, and Absolute Manhunter. I have never read a Manhunter comic that I've enjoyed. I'm looking forward to reading this because of what I've seen already with these last couple of titles. I feel like the next 3 are going to be great as well. Fingers crossed.
You don't want to stray too far from the known conceits because then it becomes Elseworlds. And you don't want to do something that's so standalone it feels like Black Label. So you're really building a parallel continuity where the characters are recognizably Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, but at the same time different enough that they feel like they're worthy of a different take on the characters, right? So if you don't change enough, then it becomes like, why do you do it? If you change too much, they become unrecognizable. So finding that right tonality is really critical to the launch, and they nailed it, and I think the fans are responding to it.
One other thing that I want to cite here that I think is a testament to the success of what they are doing right now with this Absolute Universe is that I found myself picking up and reading more DC comics than I have at any other point in recent memory. I'm reading the Absolute titles, yes, but I'm also seeking out some older comics to read, but I'm also reading some of the new stuff that they are dropping right now, and I'm enjoying it. I'm talking about things like DC Power, Rise of the Power Company, Green Lantern Fractured Spectrum, New Gods, and also Aquaman. Just four of the new DC titles that I'm reading right now because of the Absolute Universe. I spent the money on the Absolute Universe titles. I read them. I enjoyed them. That prompted me to spend more money. I think that is a good sign for DC Comics.
And so these are the kinds of things that we do periodically, but being able to do a whole line allows you to generate enough marketing and publicity and interest among the fans to make it a big deal. And it uplifts not just these books, but all our line. It creates incredible interest across the line and actually increases sales for all our competitors, too. And we noticed that even during the New 52, which we did back in 2011, is that sales lifted across the line for every publisher, and the store retailers were ecstatic.
That point there from Jim Lee makes a whole lot of sense to me. And if you think about it, if DC Comics is putting out really good comics on a regular and consistent basis, and people are coming to the LCSs to get those comics, it stands to reason that while they're there, they're going to pick up some other books from Marvel, from Image, and from other people. It's the idea that a rising tide lifts all boats. I absolutely love it. The very last clip that I want to play for you guys is Jim Lee's take on some of the artwork that's being seen in the Absolute Universe. He points to the infusion of different types of art, which I think is kind of interesting. I don't necessarily see it, but Jim is the expert when it comes to artwork, so I'm going to let him comment.
Yeah, I think they went big and bold with this, because that was the other thing, is like, you don't want to do it where they're in essentially the same costume. So in the Earth 1 stuff, Superman put on a hoodie, and that was like a big moment. And in these, I feel there's more of a sort of a Japanese manga anime influence, particularly Nick Dragotto's work on Absolute Batman. There's a big chunkiness to it, which is real, like both cartoony and also very visceral. And so I think they've really hit the right medium, sort of the happy balance of pushing the limits of what these characters can look like, but still making them feel very recognizably the iconic, superstars that they are.
So we have an interesting conversion here. We have DC Comics lowering the threshold of entry for people to get on board with iconic characters like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, etc., etc. But they're also pulling into that the influence, the artistic influence of manga and anime, which are incredibly popular. How could this not work? How could the Absolute Universe not be successful by leveraging this artwork that is incredibly popular and telling really great, fresh stories? It has to work. It has to work. Fingers crossed that it does, because if it's good for DC, it should be good for Marvel, good for Image, good for the hobby as a whole. On that note, we're going to wrap this video up. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, sound off in the comment section. If you have thoughts about the DC Absolute Universe, I want to hear your thoughts. If you've enjoyed it, sound off. If you haven't enjoyed it, let me know why. If you have a buddy out there that says all new comics are trash, but hasn't actually read a new comic in a couple of years, encourage them to check out the Absolute Universe, because I do not think that they will be disappointed. Until next time, take care.
I used to have big city dreams, but that's a small town thing. I thought the big city life was the only way you could be crowned king.